everyone. This is Alexandra Levine with Alexandra 360 coming to you live from the great state of Florida. So, some breaking news. Since President Trump's conviction, President Trump has received now over $300 million in total donations. That is incredible and amazing. 30% of the donors are first-time donors. Those are people that have never donated to President Trump in their life, and they have just hashtag had enough, and they're fed up with what's going on, and they were fed up with the kangaroo court that we saw last week with those 33 BS convictions. And a lot of them are Democrats and independents alike. And another breaking news announcement, Miriam Adelson, who is the wife of the late Sheldon Adelson, they lived out in Las Vegas. Sheldon Adelson is Jewish, so is Miriam Adelson. They were known for their casinos in Las Vegas. The woman is worth $33 billion on her own. She's a doctor. She is putting $100 million into a super PAC for President Donald J. Trump for 2024 because she knows that this is an important election. They said 2016 was an important election. They said 2020 was an important election. I'm telling you, folks, this is the most important election of our lives. We got to get President Trump back into the White House, and we got to get our country back on track. And we have some big mega donors that are putting their money into this campaign because they know that this is, again, the most important election of our lives. There's also a meme going around, and this is funny, with a young girl, and it says, when the Democrats don't get the verdict or the outcome that they want, they burn buildings and they attack people. But when Republicans get an unfair BS verdict, like we did on Thursday, guess what we do? We go and raise money because that's the proper thing to do. We don't go around and loot. Republicans don't shoot people in cold blood. We do it the right way. We fight with our wallets. We do fight, and Republicans, and we're going to have a Republican coming on, or a real conservative coming on, we do need to fight for our right to exist. We do have to have the right to defend ourselves. But instead of us just doing what the BLM group did and doing what the pro-Hamas people are doing on college campuses, we are putting in all of our guts and all of our blood and all of our money into making sure that President Trump is the president in 2024, that he gets elected November 5th. He gets inaugurated January 20th of 2025. It is very important right now. Very, very, very important. So continuing with that, we had Attorney General Merrick Garland on Capitol Hill today, and he was questioned by one of my very good friends, and he's a congressman in Florida, Congressman Matt Gaetz. He did a very, 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 very good exchange because he was an attorney himself between him and Merrick Garland on Capitol Hill in regards to the conviction that happened last week. We're going to play that clip right now. Roll the clip.
Told us that it's a dangerous conspiracy theory to allege that the Department of Justice is communicating with these state and local prosecutions against Trump. You can clear it all up for us right now. Will the Department of Justice provide to the committee all documents, all correspondence between the department and Alvin Bragg's office and Fani Willis's office and Letitia James's office?
The offices you're referring to are independent offices of state.
I get that. The question is whether or not you will provide all of your documents and correspondence. That's the question. I don't need a history lesson.
Well, I'm going to say again, we do not control those offices. They make their own decisions.
The question is whether you communicate with them, not whether you control them. Do you communicate with them, and will you provide those communications?
You make a request. We'll refer it to our Office of Legislative Affairs.
But see, here's the thing. You come in here and you lodge this attack that it's a conspiracy theory, that there is coordinated lawfare against Trump. And then when we say, fine, just give us the documents, give us the correspondence, and then if it's a conspiracy theory, that will be evident. But when you say, well, we'll take your request, and then we'll sort of work it through the DOJ's accommodation process, then you're actually advancing the very dangerous conspiracy theory that you're concerned about. Now, you were a judge, once nominated the highest.
So Congressman Matt Gaetz is not dumb here. Again, he's an attorney. So he knows that there's been correspondences between Attorney General Merrick Garland and Alvin Bragg and Fani Willis and all of these people. And all he's asking is, we would like to see the email exchanges between you and these people. And of course, Attorney General Merrick Garland, he deflects that. He says, well, we'll get it to you when we can. It's got to go through review, yada, yada, yada. May I remind our audience that nobody wanted to take this case against Donald Trump. Alvin Bragg didn't. People in New York didn't. The DOJ didn't. The higher powers. Nobody wanted to take this case because they knew it was ridiculous. They knew that it wasn't going to go anywhere. But it wasn't until President Trump announced that he was running for president again that all of a sudden they had to, quote, stop him, like Peter Strzok and Lisa Page said years ago. We have to, quote, stop Donald Trump. So after that happened, the Biden administration, they called a meeting with Alvin Bragg and all of these people, Fannie Willis and all these attorneys. And they had a meeting to say, okay, how are we going to get Trump now? Trump is running for president. We can't have him in as president. I have to stay here. I have to continue ruining the country. What are we going to do? And then that is what happened in regards to New York and why we had those and why, unfortunately, this terrible jury, this kangaroo court, convicted President Trump 34 times for BS. And Matt Gaetz knows that it was BS. And the American people know that it was BS. But that's what Merrick Garland isn't telling you. And he's going to hide. He's going to hide all of the emails, all of the correspondences, just like, and we'll get into it later, how Dr. Fauci hid a lot of the emails that he went back and forth with the NIH and so forth, and the WHO and so forth. People need to understand that emails can be found again. Text messages can be found again, even though you delete them. They're not really deleted. It takes a very expensive process to delete 33,000 emails. Oh wait, didn't Hillary Clinton do that? She bleach bitted them. It's a very expensive process to bleach bit your 33,000 emails. So Matt Gaetz, again, is not dumb. He knows that there was correspondence between Merrick Garland and Alvin Bragg and all these people. But Merrick Garland is going to say, no, we got to go through the process. If you want it, you have to request it through my office. Then, of course, nothing happens. Nothing goes through. And if the House of Representatives tries to impeach Merrick Garland, they tried to impeach DHS Secretary Mayorkas, and then it goes to the Senate now, nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to happen until we have full control. So that's why it's really, really important. That's why this election in particular is extremely important. It's extremely important that we get President Trump back into the White House, because we can't continue having the Merrick Garlands of this world, the Alvin Braggs of this world, the Fannie Willises of this world. These are people that are getting paid. Alvin Bragg is George Soros funded. These are people that are literally getting paid to hurt we the people and to push their socialism and push their communism. And what President Trump is going to be doing, he said he's going to go full appeal. But what Alan Dershowitz has said, he's a renowned attorney, and many other renowned attorneys such as Jonathan Turley, they said that President Trump and his team need to skip the smaller courts in New York and just go do an emergency, go straight up to the highest court of New York. And if they don't get the appeal that they need, then they have to do an emergency and go straight up to the U.S. Supreme Court and appeal this and reverse this. Because if this is hanging over his head, it's not going to be good. And then what did the judge do? What did Judge Marchand do? He decided to put the sentencing date July 11th, which is just days before the RNC convention, which is in Milwaukee, July 15th. Why would Judge Marchand pick July 11th to sentence Donald Trump, President Trump, to try to make a spectacle of him? A lot of people say that he may not even get jail time. He may get probation. But if this isn't pushed to the U.S. Supreme Court immediately, and if this isn't overturned immediately, it's going to be extremely bad for our country, and it's going to be detrimental to our country. And everybody, every club, every central committee, every caucus, everybody needs to rally around President Trump right now. They need to donate to him. They need to fundraise for him. They need to do rallies and events for him and get that man in office, because he is the priority right now, first and foremost. And coming up right after the break, I'm having a special guest. He's an elected official in Baltimore County, Tim Fazenbaker. He's going to be talking a lot about the election, and he's going to be talking about what's going on in Maryland, because Maryland is a hot topic right now. And we'll have him we'll have Tim right after our sponsors.
Born in the coastal plains of South Texas, Smoking Gun Coffee is founded by combat veterans that know exactly what a cup of coffee needs to taste like. Run by father and son, each coffee bean is perfected, roasted at 500 degrees, and cooled with a Gulf Coast breeze. Smoking Gun Coffee hand makes and bags each ounce of coffee for maximum customer satisfaction. With every purchase, 10% goes back to organizations that help veterans and local communities. That's Texas made, one bag at a time. To find out more, go to www.smokingguncoffee.com.
We're back, everybody, and I have a special guest with me live from Dundalk, elected official in Baltimore County, Tim Fazenmaker. He represents Dundalk, Essex, and Edgemere. He's done a lot of community outreach, helping minorities, veterans, the homeless. He's also a brand ambassador with me with an organization called We Back Blue, which supports the police, memorializes the fallen. He's done a lot of events with me, with our founder, Melissa Roby. Also, one of the biggest things that Tim and I did is we honored a former officer, Amy Caprio, which Tim can talk about a little bit. And we've been doing all of these events nationwide. So thank you so much for coming on to Alexandra 360.
Thank you for having me. And just so people are aware, I'm in actually Baltimore County, just outside of Baltimore City, encompassing those towns.
Oh, awesome. So tell us, Tim, for our viewers, what got you into politics?
Well, I've always been politically active. You would say astute. As a child, I was one of the kids that was just into that kind of stuff. But I never saw myself actually getting into politics. But it was about 6 years ago when we had an officer, Amy Caprio, who was tragically murdered in line of duty, and by some youths that weren't supposed to be where they were. And I remember seeing the responses from some of the elected officials that day, and I thought it was beneath what they should be saying, and they should have been more vocal about it and not letting this type of stuff happen. But these things have been festering and growing into many of our communities. So that was the day I decided, you know what, I would do something and do my civic responsibility. And I created a write-in campaign for something, and it took off probably because, similar to, say, President Trump or, even Ted Cruz, who I used to volunteer for, the messaging was what the Americans wanted. They wanted this type of stuff to stop. And that's really what propelled me into, being a politician technically and being an elected official at this moment.
So, Tim, I would say that you are one of the most conservative voices in not only Baltimore County, but in Maryland. You have been called a rising star in the Republican Party of Maryland and also a rising star in the Republican Party. What say you about that?
Well, I appreciate those comments, very much. To some maybe establishment people, I am the antithesis of what they look for, because I will call out people within my own party, because I'm an American first before I am a Republican, and I am a Republican. I tend to consider myself conservative, somewhat libertarian in belief, with this one concept, because labels do get us into trouble, and we can talk about that with certain people who consider themselves Republicans by label, but they are different. But this belief that most people in the world believe is that you have the God-given right to do whatever you want with your life, provided you don't take away that right from another. That belief right there, I think, is what resonates with people, and maybe that's why some people, will speak highly of me, and I appreciate that, those comments very much. And then for some people, they look at it as, well, that's not party first, and that's not what we want. Well, too bad. My objective is to put my family first, your family first, and all of you Americans first.
So I'm glad that you talked about that with the divide, and maybe you can clarify something. So your state, Maryland, is getting a lot of buzz, especially with the U.S. Senate race. Now, you had something recently called an MD GOP convention. I was there. I know you were there. It is a convention for mostly Central Committee members and RNC committee chairmen, and some higher elected officials were there. And there was a comment that was made by one of these highly elected officials. And he said, let's not focus on being a Republican. Let's focus on being a Republican in Maryland. And he basically said, if you do not support, back, endorse, or fundraise for Larry Hogan, don't get out of the Republican Party Maryland. Don't be a Republican in Maryland. You can be a Republican, but you can't be a Republican in Maryland if you don't back and support and endorse and fundraise for Larry Hogan. What say you about that? What's your reaction to that?
Yeah, that comment got real under my skin, along with many other of the elected Republicans at that convention. What that was over or undermining the will of the people that elected us. So for some other elected official to tell me that I should step down from my elected position if I don't support such person who claims to be a Republican, that is exactly what is wrong with the system. I am elected to represent the people that I represent, and the people that I represent, they may not want someone who is wishy-washy at best when it comes to Republican ideals and platforms. So I stand still to this day and say, basically, screw you. I will do what I believe is best and what the people that elected me put me there to do. And if that means that I am not going out of my way to support someone that doesn't have those same values, well, then that's what I'm going to do. And that's your problem, Maryland GOP, because like other states like Massachusetts, as an example, when you have these types of parties that become the minority party and they become so weak, they placate towards the left to try to get votes from them. You don't have a real conservative platform in these Republican parties, and that's why they continue to lose. That's what will continue to happen in Maryland, because we don't put people who are a bold difference between our opposition. You're just putting a Democrat light sometimes against one of the Democrat opponents, and that's not what I will support, and not what many of us will support. We will support the person that supports the platform and puts the American people first.
And I just want to say for the record that Larry Hogan, he showed up for about 1 minute on the evening of the convention. He showed up for a minute, took a couple pictures and left, and didn't show up at all day Saturday. Nobody announced him. He didn't give a speech. And that, to me, as a Republican, I was like, this is the MDGOP. This is one of the biggest, conventions. They have it twice a year. And he's supposed to represent, the Republican Party of Maryland as the Republican nominee for the United States Senate. And he wasn't there. And then I just read today that he isn't attending the RNC convention, which is, again, another big deal. That convention solidifies and will solidify that President Donald J. Trump is our official Republican nominee for president. So if Larry Hogan is the Republican nominee for the United States Senate in Maryland, why wouldn't he show up at the RNC? And he hasn't showed up at the RNC convention in 2016 or 2020. What say you about that?
So you're looking at what we call self-preservation. Larry Hogan is actually a very smart and intelligent individual. He used the base of conservatives in Maryland when he first ran for governor to get us excited. But then once he got enough into the race, he basically turned his back onto the conservative base because he didn't need us at that point. He began to placate towards, you would say, either the middle or to the left. And he vocally spoke out against President Trump because he knew it was beneficial to his political career. One thing that many other elected Republicans and former elected Republicans will talk about in Maryland is he actually wiped clean the slate of candidates and upcoming individuals we had in Maryland. That's why we lost seats in this state while he was elected, because his focus is more about himself. So I will always support the Republican over a Democrat, but I will say this, Larry Hogan said he wasn't voting for Donald Trump. So by example, if he's the titular head of the party in this state, why would other Republicans vote for Larry Hogan and not their own father like Larry Hogan did? Larry Hogan is a politician first, and not someone that has became an elected official actually to further the cause And those are the types of individuals that you need to be leery of, in a sense. Donald Trump became involved in politics after he had a very successful career, and later on in his life. Always beware of those people who don't have a private life before they actually end up getting involved in politics and stay in politics over and over again.
So I'm going to say one thing about Larry Hogan, and I want your responses because this is an important thought that a lot of people are taking aback to Larry Hogan. So Larry Hogan, as you know, he wrote a tweet last week, and this was moments before the conviction. And we talked about the conviction earlier in this show. And basically, in a nutshell, he writes in his tweet, we need to, quote, respect the verdict and the legal process. So he's basically condoning what is about to happen to President Trump. And I find it very odd that he writes this moments before the verdict. In a way, he kind of knew what was going to happen before it happened. But he's telling us to respect the verdict, whatever it is. So after that caused a lot of buzz in your state and nationwide, actually. I mean, I'm in Florida, everybody's talking about it. How Larry Hogan is the only Republican that has condoned this verdict. And now we have a divide. So we have the RNC, which is now run by Chairman Michael Whatley, and Laura Trump, which is President Donald J. Trump's daughter-in-law. And we have the Senate Republicans, and we have the MD GOP on one side. So you have the Senate Republicans, you have the MD GOP. They're basically kind of like poo-pooing what Larry Hogan wrote and what he's done in the past. And they said, it's okay to have controversy. It's okay, but we still need him. He's the R. We still need him in the Senate. We need the majority. But then the RNC and the constituents are saying, well, wait a minute, we can't have a guy like this. He doesn't represent the Republican Party. And if he doesn't retract his statements, and if he doesn't write something different, then a Republican in Maryland should not vote him in, and he should not be a part of the Senate. So we have, again, MD GOP and Senate Republicans, they think one way. You have the RNC and the constituents believe in another way. So you as an elected official, how do we bring those two messages together? Or which side would you take? Or you, because you are a unifier, and I know that about you, how can you unify, the party again? Because there is a divide now because of this tweet.
So just coincidentally, I went on a field trip for one of my children's graduation, and we went down to Mount Vernon, the home of George Washington. And it reminded me, as I was there looking at things, that one of the things that Washington said was political factions will be the downfall of this country. And he's completely right, because you have two parties that many people think is really one party that may be playing the masses of people. So it's not necessarily about the party that's what's really important. It's about the principles. And if you believe in somebody, a majority of what they stand for, that's probably the person that you should support. But when you have people who don't support and undermine everything that you stand for, you have to get them, in a sense, censured or out of the party, do something. And I always say, if it were Barack Obama or Hillary Clinton that decided one day they're going to wake up and they're going to change their party affiliation to R for Republican, would you vote for that person? And most people would be like, no way. But why? Because they don't believe what I believe. And that's exactly what it is. You have to have a platform of what it means to support what your group is actually is thinking. It's not about the party. It's about what the people want. We are the government. So when you do that, and you see that with President Trump, because he's crossed borders, and many people who never voted Republican or never voted for this man, it's because President Trump, like Eva Perón and other people around the world who have been able to tap into the working class, those people have the respect of the population, and they're looked down upon by many of the establishment or the elite. And those people, the working class, the average everyday person, they are more important than the establishment. You need to have them riled up and have them actually standing up and saying, no, We are the government. And that's what we need to continue to do. It's to get those regular, everyday people to stand up and say, this is your chance. Because if you don't, what we're going through right now will put us in a banana republic. You will see presidents arrested every single time. You will see the end, really, of our presidency and the distinguished nobility of it, in a sense. You will have presidents that get arrested for war crimes or anything, and then you will all ultimately have a president who will end up saying, nobody can be trusted but me. I will stay president forever. And then you have that ultimate tyrant. It's what happens in other places. You get Saddam Hussein, or you get Stalin and people like that. That's what we need to avoid. Support the people, not necessarily a letter behind a person's name.
So, Tim, what is your vision, not only for the Republican Party in Maryland, but for the Republican Party in general?
I would love to see the Republican Party basically believing and espousing what I said earlier, where you have that God-given right to do whatever you want with your life, as long as you don't take away that right from another. And that simply means, if I want to live and work and then keep most of my money, so that's, lower taxes, because I don't want to be forced to pay taxes for things that I don't support, then that's what it should be. If someone wants to do whatever in their personal life, socially and things like that, I may not support, but that person wants to do it. If it's not harming me, let them do it. That's what the Republican Party needs to stand for. Many times when I've been into the heart of Baltimore City and some of the more urban areas, the more troubled areas, we've had these conversations where people would say, the Black community, we support, most of the things that the Republican Party stands for. We know we're being taken for granted by the Democrats, but we're just afraid that you guys are racist. And my message to them, and it came out of my working with Brandon Strzok from the Walkaway movement. My message to many in the Black community was, well, don't just walk away from the Democrat Party. Help take over the Republican Party and shape it with those conservative values that we all believe. And if you help take it over, then you don't have to worry about, that your belief that they're racist. But there's always going to be racist, and I would say that the more of the racists are going to be on the left and the Democrat side. We see that, you have people like myself and you and others that go into the urban communities, and we're working to say, look, we're here to help you help yourself. The Black community was such a conservative group up until the 1950s and 60s, really, and by design, it's been destroyed with LBJ and the Great Society and things like that, all by design. And I think the Republican Party generally needs to understand that message of being able to do what you want, and you have that God-given right to do what you want. That needs to be the message, because that resonates with at least 90% of people out there. And until we do that, we will be continuing this struggle against the left, who paints the Republican Party as the party of no, or the party of racism, or the party of whatever else. We need to change the game and create our messaging completely different than what we've been doing.
Now, is that something that you're doing as a Central Committee member? Because I know one of the biggest things that you did is you built armies, you recruited people. That is actually one of the things as a Central Committee member you're supposed to do. You're supposed to recruit candidates. Besides election integrity and poll watchers and poll and judges and all that stuff, the main thing is to recruit candidates. And we're approaching November of 2024. We got 2026 coming up. Is that something that you are doing right now currently as a Central Committee member? Are you starting to build that army again and starting to recruit candidates for 2026 and beyond?
Of course. One of the things that I realized very early on when I got involved in politics was it's a machine, and I couldn't win against a machine just as one individual. And I began to network with other people. And then I decided I could help people with my resources. I have a mental health background and some other things that helped. Other people brought things to the table. And specifically with even Baltimore City, even though I'm not in Baltimore City, when I did run for Congress, I had parts of Baltimore City, and I worked with 5 of the 9 Black Republicans that were running in Baltimore City a few years ago in 2020. President Trump actually retweeted that and talked about how Baltimore City had more Black Republicans running than anywhere else. And that was because that was one of the things that I said, I don't live in Baltimore City, but if I can help the people in Baltimore City help themselves, it helps me and it helps my community as well. So I continue to focus on bringing on people who have similar beliefs, who are just regular everyday people, and to try and take over the school boards and the central committees and work our way up from there, a real grassroots campaign. And of course, we've had national attention and help from national figures as well. But it all really starts from the beginning. And that's what I'll continue to do. And what, if anyone's listening and hearing this message and thinking about running or anything, that's what needs to be done. Get involved with like-minded people. Don't worry about the clubs and the groups and the committees, those things, because a lot of that is where the real Republicans have issues. We see the establishment pushing down those regular folks, and they want to keep to themselves, and they want all the power to themselves, even if they're in the minority. Because Rush Limbaugh used to say, the great Rush used to say, a lot of the Republicans that were in the minority, they didn't want to lose that little bit of power they had, but they didn't want to be in control, because then they were responsible for the outcome. So continue to fight so that we take over these smaller organizations that are actually the backbone of the entire Republican Party.
So Tim, we have about a minute left. I'm going to leave the floor to you. Tell us how we can follow you, etc.
Yeah. So Tim at timfazenbaker.com. I'm sorry, that's my email. You can find me. I have to make some updates.
Everybody.
Yeah. Of course, you can find me on Facebook, Tim Fazenbaker for America, Twitter, Tim Faze, or America One Tim Faze. I'm everywhere. If you Google me, you'll see me.
I just say for the record, everybody messes up your last name. I thought my last name was bad. Oh my God. And it's so funny because before Tim goes on some of these interviews, the guys always say, pronounce your last name for us. And he goes, Fazenbaker. So they say it 3 times. And then then they go live. Oh my God, they call him other things. It's so funny. So I know why you go by Tim Faze for short.
Yeah, you should hear what Democrats call me, but that's a whole nother story.
Oh my gosh. Well, I just want to say again for the record, people remember the name Tim Fazenbaker. It's a long name, but remember it, because this man is making it, and he will be in the halls of Congress one day, mark my words, or even beyond. He is the face right now for the Republican Party of Maryland. He is the face right now for the Republican Party. He is a rising star, and we will be continuing to watch your career bloom, Tim, and God bless you. And thank you so much for coming on.
Bless, thank you.
Thank you so much. And we will be right back right after our sponsor.
Can my Eco Washer Special Edition model do everything? We eliminate all the toxic poisons in your home. No more detergent, no more fabric softeners, no more hot water. Sound too good to be true? It's not. Where did this technology come from? This technology literally came from the hospital industry. There's a super expensive commercial Oculus ozone laundry system used in hospitals worldwide. How did we create the Eco Washer SE? We simply miniaturized it using the advent of micro technology. These are like a solid state computer. No filters, no fillers, no ingredients, nothing. It runs the water through and transforms the water into an unlimited supply of nature's pure detergent and nature's pure cleaning supplies that will mop your floors, wash your carpet, take pesticide off of your fruits, veggies, fish, meats, and it'll make everything last much longer when you put it in the refrigerator. Hey, stop supporting these corporate chemical villains and step up and get your Eco Washer SE today. The new Eco Washer SE is a chemical-free laundry and cleaning solution. Imagine, no more detergent, no more chemicals, saves you money, pays for itself, gives you a healthier life, and simplifies doing laundry. And now we're going to include 2 free Thunder Pure Safe Air Minis that purifies your home and sanitizes your surfaces like a thunderstorm in nature. Eliminates all odors. Plus, you're receiving $100 off by using code podcast on the new EcoWasher SC. Let me remind you, you get 2 free Thunder Pure Safe Air Minis plus $100 off during this podcast. Podcast is your coupon code